So today we're talking about a friend like Krishna. And what are some things that you look for in a friend? What makes a good friend?
A good friend?
Yes.
Someone that listens to you and supports you and makes you laugh.
Very nice, yes. Will?
Someone who's honest with you.
Nice. Connor?
Someone who loves you.
Someone who loves you. Akshay?
Someone who's supportive of you, no matter how you are.
Yes. Carmen?
Someone who tells you what you need to hear, not just what you want to hear.
Someone who tells you what you need to hear. Yeah, what is that called? There's a term. You don't want to have a support group that just supports when you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, somebody who criticizes.
Who is cutting into you. Okay. Yes. Mario. This is Mario. And this other. What is it? Ryan. Ryan. Yes. Ryan.
I figure we're gonna look some major points.
Someone who can expand on your thoughts, I would say.
So there's like a type of union that you have that they can expand on your thoughts. There's a deep connection. Ryan, and there's Narayan.
Oh, I would say someone you've grown up with.
Somebody you've grown up with. In Hawaii, I grew up in Hawaii. My dad's from New York, but I grew up in Hawaii. And there was a term called calabash cousins. And I was like, I thought there's certain things that people use, certain terms that people use in one place, and you find out that they don't use in other places. So calabash cousin was somebody you grew up with that became like your cousin because you were playing with since you're 4 or 5 year neighbors. And you say, that's my cousin. You're like, okay, who's he related to? No, he's not related. He's my cousin though. So somebody you've been playing with from.
Similar to that, someone who like shares similar qualities.
Okay, shares with Sajati Sangha. Similar qualities that you're associated with. Connor. Let's see.
Someone who wants to see you grow.
Someone wants to see you grow. Very nice.
Someone you can trust.
Someone you can trust. Very nice.
Somebody who supports you with whatever you're going through at the moment, and somebody who's on the same like emotional level that you're on.
Nice, thank you. Someone who supports you, same emotional level. For money.
Someone who gives you space also.
Someone who can give you space. Nice. Any other thoughts? Anybody else?
Everything everybody said.
Okay. Another one I could think of is someone who doesn't need anything from you. It feels like a real friend. Like they're like the guy from Harry Potter. He was the actor who played Harry Potter. He saw this guy sitting on a bench crying, and he went next to him. Are you okay? And he was saying like he had a breakup or something like that. But they became really good friends. And he pretended that he actually didn't know who this character was. That he didn't know, oh, you're a famous actor. And so this person, he felt like this bond, like, oh, you're not trying to get. Well, first of all, he was the one that was trying to reach out, but he didn't see that the relationship was like, oh, you're trying to connect to me because I have something and you want that thing from me. So somebody who doesn't need anything, who's just giving. Okay, and then why do we need a friend? Why do we want a friend?
Because it's lonely if you.
It's lonely,
if you don't
yes.
have a friend that's able to support you.
So just to back up before we get into that topic, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes how we're all actually not this material body. It says, Dehino smin yada dehe, komaram yovanam jarata. Dehe means the body. And Dehino, the one who's inside the body, he is changing his body. If anybody in the room is older than 7, then we have actually have a new body. The body that we had when we were born, it is dead. Every cell that was in that body is no longer here. But somehow we are still here. So Krishna says, the reason is because the one who's in this body is changing his body. And this change is happening from boyhood to youth to old age. Komaram, Yovanam, Jara. And he says, in the same way you're already changing your body in this life, you change your body at the time of death. And he gives many examples. He says, Vasam Chijanani Atalihai. Just like you change your clothes. Another way he describes that we change our body and we carry with our body our mind and our subtle senses. Do you know you have subtle senses? So you have eyeballs. Everyone's an eyeball. But do you know you have subtle eyes? Like, can you close your eyes and picture an orange? So it means you still have sight even without your eyes. So you have subtle eyes. So you have the subtle mind and the subtle senses, the intelligence and the ego. And you're carrying that with you from one body to another. So I will give you an example. So here's some headphones. And let's see. Kind of props to enough. Okay, just headphone. So here's the headphone. You say this is the soul, and it's inside this case, little tiny case called the Shukshma Sharira, subtle body. Anta Sharira, Shukshma Sharira, very subtle, it's kind of like if you imagine you have your hand and then you put a very thin glove over the hand. And then over that, you put a boxing glove. So you have the subtle body, which is composed of 3 elements. What are the 3 elements of the subtle body? Ego, false sense of ego, yeah.
Intelligence and mind.
Intelligence and mind, yes. So that is a thin layer that is covering over the soul. And then on top of that, is there another kosha, another layer called the gross physical body. So you're carrying with you mind and senses, mind and subtle senses, intelligence. Like when you wake up in the morning, you hear both your mind and your intelligence. What does the mind say when you wake up?
Yes, baby.
Yes. And the intelligence says, you need to pay the bills, you got to go to work, you got to go to Harinam, you got to go to Mangalarti. There's so many things you have to do. It doesn't matter if the mind says relax. Intelligence is something more steady. Mind is, I like this, I don't like this, accepting and rejecting, and often it's based on things that are instantly gratifying. So you have the mind, subtle senses, intelligence, and false sense of ego. Like your cells are all working together because of this, what is called ahamkar, false sense of ego. Imagine if your cells work against your body. That's when you want actually this ahamkar. Like that's called cancer. When your cells stop working with the body, like, oh, I'm going to do my own thing. That's when that's called a malfunction of the ahamkar, the ego. The cells are not actually responding to you being the Lord and Master of this galactic being of the body. It's like you have so many different cells, life forms that are there, but you're the boss of the whole thing. For example, your consciousness spreads throughout the entire body. Like there was one devotee, he had to get a kidney transplant, and he really didn't like chocolate, and his wife really liked chocolate, and she kindly gave her kidney to him. And as soon as he got her kidney, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, he was fiendishly hungry for chocolate. Because her cells were imbued with her consciousness. And so, until those cells actually took over, had his consciousness being taken over, then it still had her consciousness imbued. Consciousness becomes imbued in things. Just like you have a nice sweater, maybe knitted by your grandmother, it feels different. Or food cooked by your grandmother, it tastes different. Because the consciousness is imbued into it. So similarly, the body is kind of like, it's described in the Gita that the sun is in the middle of the solar system and light spreads out. So the soul is situated in the heart, and its consciousness spreads out throughout the entire body. And that consciousness spreads to the kidney. The kidney that is used to like that consciousness of, I like chocolate. And so that consciousness was still there in her kidney when she gave it to him. So you change, you carry with, remember what is this analogy for? Subtle body and? The soul. And he carries, he goes from, he's with one body, when this body dies, he takes with his mind and senses to the next body. This is the new body, got a hefty body. Just like the air, what does the air smell like? Nothing, it's neutral. Depending on what it's associating with. It could be Staten Island. What does it smell like? We give it a hard rap. I think it's better now, isn't it?
Yes.
It's better now. I used to always say Staten Island. Now they've worked on it though. Or it could pass over a rose garden. It's neutral. So guna pravida, depending on what it's being associating with, what it's being nourished by, what it's connecting to, the mind and the intelligence is being affected in a certain way. We're carrying, like Mozart, what was his beating heart in his past life? Musician, yeah. He's composing symphonies at the age of 4, means he was doing it in his past life. It was something that was beating heart. So he's carrying his different conceptions of life from one body to another. But Krishna describes that to see this, it actually takes some kind of training. Like Mario he's driving down the street, some smoke starts to come out of the car. He pulls over, he gets out of the car, he opens up the hood, he looks inside, and what does he do? Where does the hand go? The hand goes like this. Now the mechanic comes and looks inside the hood and sees the exact same thing he's seen, but he understands the whole situation. Do you have auto mechanic training?
Oh no.
Sorry, yeah. Hand is going like that.
Yeah,
Exactly. Hand is going right to the head, scratching the head. So jnana chakshus, when one gets spiritual training, they can begin to see how the soul is living in the body and is experiencing the body and experiencing the changes of the body. But the one who hasn't yet received this type of training, they cannot see it even if they try. Vimudanaru pashyanti. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. One whose eyes have been trained with knowledge. They can see all this clearly. And so the reason is this is because of Maya. So what does Maya mean? Illusion. And have you heard of some of the definitions of Maya other than illusion?
That which is not.
Yeah, that which is not. I heard somebody the other day say that Shiva means that which is not. I was like, no, you have the wrong word. It's Maya. Maya means that which is not. Another meaning of the word Maya means that which can be measured. It can be measured. It's Maya. Part of this temporary, illusory world. Another meaning of Maya is magic. There's another meaning of Maya. Our powers. Mama Maya, my power. So Krishna describes that this Maya is covering the conditioned soul. It conditions the soul who's in this apple case. He doesn't see his situation, so he's being covered. And thus he's identifying with the body and trying to enjoy everything that he sees within the body. He takes birth in another situation, and again he just goes, immediately begins to identify himself with the body, and again tries to chase after and control things. So this is called the curtain of illusion. Now one may say, well, if we're covered with illusion, then can God see us? So in the Gita, Krishna describes that this covering is like a tinted window. Vedaham samatitani. He says that the whole world is covered and they don't know me, but I know everything. I know everything that's going on. And so this leads to the understanding, 3 levels of understanding of the divine. What are those 3? 3 stages of the same thing. 3 depths of understanding of the same one thing. Ever heard this before?
Was it Thomas?
Oh, you're talking about the 3 modes of nature. This is not that one, yes.
Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality.
Yeah. So it's called Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So this is one thing that is understood in 3 different stages. So like say some villagers have never seen a train before. And so let's see, Will can be, you'll be one of the villagers. Okay, Will's one of the villagers, and Hector's one of the villagers, and Mario is one of the villagers. So Will, he's there. And from far away, he sees a train. What do you see? Train is coming. You've never seen a train before. So what are you seeing?
Just like a tiny black dot in the distance.
Maybe a light?
Fine.
A light, yeah, a big bright light. And you don't see any detail, but you might hear something. Some like rumble. And so Will runs home and he tells his friends and family, I saw a train. What's a train like? What is that? What is it? It's a light. A light with smoke and it rumbles. And Hector, he stays longer. Will's very excited. He likes sharing things, so he runs home and tells everybody. Hector, he's more relaxed. So he waits a little longer. He sees the train. He sees people getting in and off the train. Like, okay, I got this thing figured out. And he goes home, tells his friends and family what a train is. He says, I saw this thing, it's got these rectangle boxes and people going in and out. There's smoke coming on the top and there's these gears and Will's like, I don't even know what this guy's talking about. It's a light. It's a light with smoke. You said something about the smoke, but I don't see any boxes. And Mario, he gets on the train. He meets the train conductor. He feels the wind in his hair. He has some chai in the cafe. He's never been in something so fast. He's only been on a donkey before. So he's an aborigine in the village, so he's never seen any of this stuff. But he goes home and tells his friends and family what a train is. And there's a greater depth of understanding. So the first level that's given in the Vedic literature is called Brahman, which is understanding that everything is fundamentally the energy of the divine. Everything is God. I'm God, you're God, it's all one. This is Brahman. And it is a truth, but it's not the end of it. So the light was there, but it's not the end of it. If you see a mountain from a distance, what does it look like? It's far enough. What does it look? 3-dimensional or 2-dimensional? 2. It's sometimes hard to tell. Is it a cloud? Is it a mountain? It's sometimes hard to tell. As you get closer, you see the 3 dimensions. And as you get closer, then you can even taste the water. So this Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, I'll give you another example. There is the smell of the pizza. It's pervasive. Smell of pizza. Then you see the pizza. So that's called, instead of pervasive, that is called locative. Means it's in one spot. So the Paramatma feature is the understanding that there is actually not just a pervasive form of God in the form of His energy, but there is a locative form of God in the form of the energetic. Because to have power, you need to have powerhouse. So you have energy, you have the energetic. You have the sunlight, and then you have the sun. So this is the energetic. So this locative form is a form called Param Atma, super soul, that resides within the heart of every creature. And He doesn't just stop there. He again also enters into the heart of each and every atom. So like the first level of realization, it is pervasive, but it's also locative. Location, it's got one spot. That makes sense? So when you see the pizza, it's there. But how many of us want to just see and smell pizza? Don't you want to taste the pizza? So the Bhagavan realization is a realization of God as the Supreme Person. And as a Supreme Person, it's a realization that gives the greatest taste, the greatest experience. In the ancient Vedic literature, it's described, if you take the pleasure, the greatest thing, what are some of the things that you like to do? Some things you enjoy to do?
Dancing.
Dancing. All right. So you gotta come Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday for some dancing. Okay. What else?
It's writing.
What?
Writing.
Writing. She took yours away, so you had to say writing. We'll have to give a bid to Connor's graduation dance. Everyone must see this video. It's great. We formed a dance to Govindam. Was it Govindam? Govind Madhipurjam in front of 900 students at his college graduation dance. It was amazing. So dancing, writing. So it's described that if you take the pleasure found on earth, the highest degrees of pleasure, and you multiply that thousands and thousands of times, there are planets that are superior to Earth, called the planets of the Devatas, the demigods. Because to be born as a human on Earth, everybody, whether you're rich or poor, it's not so much of a difference of our experience. We definitely find a lot of suffering, but as far as like happiness and pleasure, we don't really have too. There's down here is like lots of degrees of suffering, but great, immense, wonderful pleasure. It's not really so high. It's like kind of like you have a scale, -8, -7, -6. So you do something to get rid of some misery, and you feel like, I'm enjoying. But you just got to like -2 or -1. And then maybe if you experience something that's like a 1 or a 2 on the material level. And I wouldn't say you have like 7 or 8 or 9 in the human earthly experience. It's quite limited. So it says that if you take the pleasure that you find on earth, you multiply that thousands of times, that's the pleasure you get in the planets of the demigods, the devatas, the angels. How do you become an angel? Why don't we want to become an angel now? Because they have better pleasure, material pleasures. They have all the nice things. So it's described that if we do so much good karma, like we feed the hungry, clothe the poor, they dig wells and build hospitals, we do all these wonderful activities, then what we deserve might be more than human life has to offer. So we get born in a higher place. But and when you get born in a higher place, you can enjoy all those nice things. How many of you ever been on a cruise? Anybody have ever been on a cruise? Okay, you've been on a cruise? And how long did you stay on the cruise?
It was like a couple of hours.
Why didn't you stay? Was it good?
I got sick.
You got sick. How about you? Did you get sick or did you have a nice time?
I had a good time.
Why didn't you stay longer?
To go back to work.
Back to work. So you stay on the cruise for how long? As long as your money allows. When the money runs out, back to work. So you can go to the heavenly planets. You can go to these higher planets and enjoy material pleasures. Shine punye martalokam vishanti. When your karma runs out, you come back to earth as a human. But you take that pleasure of the higher heavenly planets, and you multiply that thousands of times. It says that's the pleasure of Janaloka, the great sages who are even superior to the demigods. You take that pleasure, multiply that thousands of times. That's the pleasure of Brahma, a being who lives so long. His lifespan is the lifespan of our universe. He's been around for 150 trillion years, and he's got 311 trillion 40 billion total. And you take that pleasure, you multiply that millions of times, then you get the pleasure of what is called Brahmananda. This is a pleasure of realizing the spirit, that Brahman, that spiritual substance. Okay, so imagine that we've multiplied many, many, many times. But if you take that pleasure, the sum of that, and you multiply that millions and millions and billions of times, it still does not equal 1 drop of the pleasure the soul feels in relationship, in a loving relationship with Krishna, with the divine. Bhakti. Can you imagine that? We can't even imagine it. Can you imagine the pleasure of dancing that you have multiplied exponentially? Can't even imagine it. So, in the Vedic literature, it describes that the supreme absolute truth, its ultimate form, is that of a person. How many of you think that the sun is hot? Raise your hand. Why do you think the sun is hot?
Well, because you feel it.
You feel it.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Sometimes people say, the scientists, and I said, that's okay answer. There's some trust there, some faith, but you feel it is a direct experience. And so we say the sun is hot because we have this logic called Satkaryavad. I mean, you understand something about the cause when you look at the effect. So if sunlight is hot, sunlight is bright, then what does that say about the source? Much more hot, much more bright. So if I have personality, if you have personality, if you have relationships, you have all these personal attributes, what does that say about the source? Oftentimes, a person will come to an impersonal understanding of God because of daddy issues, God issues, maybe presenting some idea of God that was not actually glorious, beautiful, satisfactory. But logically speaking, God must be a person. If you want to examine this world under a spiritual investigation, if there's some metaphysical thing, it must present personality. Otherwise, it's like saying hot sunlight comes out of a cold sun. It makes no sense. So logically speaking. But we often are found ourselves, afraid of this idea, because the presentation of God is not everything that we've heard. We've described friendship, isn't it? What are some of the qualities of friendship that we've heard? Everybody shared something. What did you share?
Kind, supportive, says what the truth is even if it doesn't feel good, shares similar qualities.
Share similar qualities. That's an important one. Like, can you make a friendship with a nuclear explosion? Like, hey, nuclear explosion, how are you? It's like totally something different from you. It's totally super powerful. You can't even fathom it. It can't even connect with you. And it just blows you away. You can only relate if you have similar qualities. So sometimes, we presented that we've seen maybe sometimes the comics, like these comics that say you're going to go to hell if you don't follow this one tradition. And they show like a picture, and God's like, he's a titan in a big chair, and he's got no face. And you're like a little speck. So it's like, having a relationship with a nuclear explosion. What's the relationship? You're a speck, and there's nothing in common whatsoever. What are other qualities that we're describing for friendship? Really, what we look for in a friend.
I think I really like when you said they don't need anything.
Don't need anything, yeah.
That's really
Are
nice.
not wanting to get something out of us, but maybe still hankering for that connection. So Krishna actually is hankering for God is hankering for our connection, but he's Atmarama, fully self-satisfied. What are some other qualities that we just heard earlier? Everybody shared some things about friends.
I didn't share before, but someone that you can depend on, that's always there for you.
Always there for you. So this Lord that's in the heart means Krishna is always with us. I was once interviewed for a documentary called PGS, Personal Guidance System. It was produced by an MTV producer. This was his own personal thing, his own journey. He was driving in Los Angeles at 2 a.m. and he heard this voice from within his heart. Stop! And it was so strong that he immediately slammed on his brakes, and a dump truck ran the red light right in front of him. And so the dump truck would have killed him. But somehow this guidance, this voice from within the heart, told him to stop. And so he had this investigation. What was that voice? What is this? It's like GPS, but it's PGS. It's personal guidance system. Where is that coming from? And so he interviewed monks, and he went to Tibet, he went to India. And so he also came to Dallas, and he interviewed myself and a few other devotees. And we're explaining how Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, the supreme controller of all things, Shrideshi Arjuna Tishtiti, is in everyone's heart. And he is directing their wanderings, Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani, Yantra Rudhani Maya, who are seated as if in a machine made out of material energy. So in this book we have called the Bhagavatam, in the second book, in the second chapter of the second book, I think it's the verse 34, it said this realization of the Lord in the heart can be experienced. First, one has to realize they're not the body. You know? Is this hand me? If I lost this hand, do I still exist? So that's the first step of realization. Then the second one is to realize that I'm not the mind. That I can see, seated in my meditation, I can see myself observing the mind. So the mind is functioning, and I'm seeing how it's functioning. I'm seeing how it's trying to function on me. So I'm seated as an observer. So I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. We always say, I'm something divine. But there is something else. There's the body, there's the mind, and then there's this intelligence. And like this MTP producer, he saw the intelligence was not coming from himself. Have you ever had some voice of intelligence in your heart that says, hey, that was a pretty lame thing you did to your friend, you should apologize? You're like, no! But there's that voice of intelligence that oftentimes won't be so vocal because we're not so interested in hearing, or sometimes we're interested in hearing, and that voice of intelligence seems like our own intelligence, but if you understand, it's coming from something. If you examine, it's not yours. All the great artists, so many of them describe it. Like Mozart, back to Mozart, he says, I'm not a musician, I'm a secretary. It's just coming down. Just this intelligence that's coming through, it's not coming from me. So you realize you're not the body, you realize you're not the mind, and then you realize that you're taking help of an intelligence. And that intelligence is pervading the universe, directing things, arranging things. And so that's the experience of the super soul. The Lord is in everyone's heart. He accompanies us. The ancient books called the Upanishads give the example that there are two birds on a tree sitting on a branch. And one bird is eating the fruits. And he's so into this delicious fruit that he forgets that his friend is sitting right behind him. So that friend is, in this example, is that inside the heart, there are two souls. There's us engrossed in trying to squeeze out whatever little pleasure we can get out of this material experience. And then our greatest friend is right next to us. So I was reading some qualities of Krishna. Krishna has unlimited qualities, but I was reading some of them here. So someone says he was somebody who speaks the truth and speaks very kindly. So Krishna is a truthful and very pleasing speaker. He can speak all the languages. Parrot, donkey, Canadian, everything. He's expert in speaking. He's very wise, a learned scholar, and a genius. By which senses a person will first see God? Is it their nose, their eyes, the ears? We read these books and we understand this is eternal wisdom. One time our founder, Srila Prabhupada, he was giving a lecture, and one Indian gentleman was saying, "Why are you speaking this Hindu dogma?" And Srila Prabhupada responds that this is actually a science. Krishna doesn't say to Arjuna, "Hey Arjuna, because you're a Hindu and I'm a Hindu god, I'm going to teach you some Hindu philosophy." Hindus have a thing called the body. And Hindus have bodies that change. But fortunately, we find that our bodies change from youth to old age, and we also change our body at the time of death. So this is actually a science. Everyone changes their body. That is something that you can experience right now. If you have any faith in basic biology, you'll know that the cells that are in your body 10 years ago are not there today. They have all died off. So when you had your 7th birthday, and the last piece of your 7-year-old body has died, you didn't cry, "Oh, happy birthday to you." You didn't cry because you felt, I still exist. My 7-year-old body is dead, but I still exist. So this body is just actually a muppet, a puppet. Imagine you take your kids to see Jim Henson live, and they have all the Kermit, and then at the end they just take their hand out of the puppet, and it's like, "Oh, he's dead. CPR, give him a shock, get him back to life." He's like, no, it's just a puppet. It's just a puppet. So the body actually is always like this. We feel that it's alive, but it's actually dead. It is only the soul that gives it the presence of life. It's like when you take the battery out of it's the battery that had that energy there, not the machine. So you take the soul leaves the body, then the vitality leaves the eyes. It no longer becomes a person, it becomes a thing. If you've ever been in an experience of someone leaving their body, the body no longer, you don't see the person there anymore. It's a thing. It could be Marilyn Monroe. Who are some handsome guys? Name something. Go on.
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando. All right, come on, ladies. Who are some handsome guys? Michael Jackson, yeah. But if the soul had left the body, nobody wants to hang out with that. Put a garbage bag over it, put something over it, put a cloth over it. We don't want to see it. We don't want to spend time with it. So the soul that gave that vitality. So Krishna is an expert linguist. He's very expert in artistic enjoying. Somebody said he's funny. Yes. A friend is someone who has fun. He's highly cunning, expert, grateful. He knows how to deal with everyone according to time, person, country. So he's accommodating to everyone. He's steady, forgiving, grave, calm, equal to all. Chivalrous, kind, always respectful to respectable people. Very simple, very liberal. Liberal means giving. Humble, bashful. Protector of the surrendered souls. He's always very happy. When you hear about Krishna, you read the prayers and always smiling. Submissive to love. Very influential and famous. Do any of you have any famous friends? Anybody here have any famous friends? Who do you got? Those guys.
You watch Top Gun?
Top Gun, yeah. The old one or the new one?
The new one.
I haven't seen it. Yes, sir.
Once I grew up from babies with everything kid and play.
Kid and Play. I looked like those guys in high school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, someone thought I was one, because I had the braids.
Yeah.
I looked just like those dudes.
You don't have any anymore.
No, I can show you the pitch. No, I'm thinking of Crisscross, but Kid and Play, yeah. I had the flat top too, the flat top. Yeah, Kid and Play. Oh, cool. They had the movies, yeah. They were big in the 80s. So when you're friends with somebody and they have this other quality, like, oh, they're famous, it's just an added excitement. Like if you're friends with somebody who's maybe if you're really friends with somebody who's like the president of some country, it's not because they're the president, but it is cool. Like, oh wow, my friend is so accomplished. My friend is so intelligent, so talented. My friend is God. That would be cool, isn't it? Like Krishna. So he's very influential and famous. He is, let's see. He's very wealthy. Like on Thursday, I went to Thompson Square Park, and I met a Krishna devotee there, and he happened to know this band called the Veronicas. His best friend is on the. His best friend is in a reality show with them, and I also happen to know them. They came to India with my family and I. So it was so weird because we just randomly met at Prabhupada's tree at Thompson Square Park. But when you have, here's some more qualities. He's always youthful. And he also generates innumerable universes from his body. It's another cool quality of being friends with God. He can just generate universes from his body. There's a long list here. But so we have this thing called Maya. Maya is that curtain of illusion, and it is there. Like we had Yeshudalal poked his head in. He gave this talk about how everything is happening because of love. So if someone holds a gun to your head and says, "Love me," you say, "I love you," yes. But there will be no true love there. Love cannot be forced upon the individual. And God could force every soul to be submissive to Him. If we saw that within every atom He was there, and that this universe is just like a speck on the tip of His hair, nothing, it would just be so enormous that we would just automatically feel. It's like, imagine you come, there is a giant lion in this room and it roars like, oh, and you're just completely humbled and just like, you're just like, you'll faint. But He doesn't do that. He doesn't impose His existence upon any of us, because although He doesn't need it, He does desire a loving connection with us. He's fully satisfied, but He wants us to be happy. And He enjoys having a loving relationship. So there's what is called Mahamaya, this curtain of illusion that allows the soul to not love God, to not even see that He's like, there's one fish in the water that says, "What's this water that you're all talking about?" And the other fish says, "It's all around you. You can't feel it. It's in your gills. It's everywhere." So I don't know, what are you talking about? So the soul doesn't experience God, although God is everywhere, within His own heart, within it, everything is made out of His energy. And He's even that voice within the heart. So He doesn't impose that existence. And He creates this yoga mind, this curtain, to allow the soul the freedom to joy separately from Him as long as the soul wants. So Mahamaya allows the soul distance from God, forgetfulness of God. And then there's another type of Maya called Yoga Maya. And that Yoga Maya causes intimacy with God, closeness. For if you're to treat God as your friend, wouldn't you have to forget that He is creating innumerable universes from His body? You would be a little bit too starstruck, isn't it? If He's the original source of all incarnations, the predominating deity of all the spiritual planets. You'd be a little starstruck. So there's another type of Maya, an illusion that exists in the spiritual world that allows souls to treat God not only as their friend, but even as their own child. What are some of the types of loving relationships you find in this world? And this is a question for those who aren't old school Hare Krishnas.
Mother and daughter.
Mother and daughter, so that, okay, what else? So that's the family, loving, parental relationship. What else? What kind of positive relationships can you have?
Teacher and student.
Teacher and student, okay. Maria?
With your life partner, your romantic relationship.
A romantic partner. Okay, so we got 3.
Siblings.
Siblings, okay. That's still in the family kind of category. So we got teacher and student. Okay, let's start. Teacher and student, parent, romance. What's kind of in between the family relationship and a teacher and student? Friend, okay. And then what's less than a teacher and student but a positive kind of connection? What, how about even, yeah, somebody that you personally don't even know, but you're a fan of. Like, like when the Beatles were there. Like,
Idol?
Idol, yeah, someone you idolize. So that's called admiration or idol. So these are, basically you have a variety of different relationships, but there are 5 primary forms. It's kind of idol, admire, then somebody you respect and honor, your martial arts you feel so much gratitude, but you don't feel a type of equalness. You feel like, no, you should be humble and respectful towards this person. Then you have somebody who you're friendly with, then you treat them as equals. And then you have all these kind of family relationships, but then the highest form of affection is the parental relationship. Now you're not their equal, you're their superior. And they need you. And then you have romance. So what was that logic we said about why is the sun hot? You feel it. And we understand something about the cause when we look at the effect. So if sunlight's hot, then the sun must be hot. If I'm a person, then God must be a person. If these relationships exist in this world, they must exist in the spiritual world. Now one may ask, wait a minute, all these relationships have all kinds of inebrities, brokenness to them. Even persons have brokenness to them. Now in this world we also have sunlight, but we have something that we don't see on the sun, shadows. It's just utter illuminosity. So when the ray of light is distanced from the sun, then this anomaly comes, darkness, shadow. But if you were to, walk along that light beam and go all the way back to the sun, you would find that it just becomes so much more luminous to the point where there is no shadow, there is no darkness. It's just utter luminosity. So in this world we have our personal characteristics, our personal forms. We find all these inebrities, shadow-like qualities. But if you go back to the origin of everything, You have the paradigmatic being, the perfect personality, the perfect person, the perfect and perfect forms of relationships, perfect friendship, perfect romance, perfect parental love. So everything you see here is just a reflection, a dim reflection of what's in the spiritual world. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna. So I'm just kind of winging it here. I don't know what the schedule is, but if there are any reflections you want to share? Yes, Mario?
Well, I have a kind
Questions?
Yeah, because you said Maya is something that can be measured, right? Wouldn't, I mean, maybe I'm not right in my way of thinking, but maybe like logic is something that is somewhat measurable, especially as a human. And so to then say that using logic for God, then we would be using Maya because it's a sort of measurement. So
Yeah, we use Maya in the service of God. So, in the reason that term is there for that which can be measured, because the soul and God are not Maya, therefore they can't be measured. And so they're beyond, God is, what is this in the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita? It says the soul is amazing. It cannot be, it cannot be confined to material logic. It goes beyond it. You have illogical, doesn't come to the standards of logic, logical, and then you have what is called translogical. Means it is still reasonable, but logic doesn't have a hold on it. Like if logic could prove God, then logic would be superior to God. It's not that spirituality and God, all that stuff is illogical. It's definitely reasonable, but it's not. God is not subjected to it. He goes beyond that. So in 2nd canto, it describes if you talk about Krishna's energy, his Maya, in relationship to Krishna, then it all becomes spiritualized. Like we talk about how we're not the body. We talk about the universes and the energies and earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, the 3 gunas, the pradhan, the 5 senses, the 5 objects of the senses, the 5 elements, these are all parts of this material. But when you talk about it in relation to the spirit, then it all becomes spiritualized.
What was pradhan?
When you engage the energies of this world and connect it to God, then everything becomes godly. So use your intelligence, use your mind. Actually, we're talking about kind of esoteric topics, like how you can be a friend with God. But before we can even understand that, we have to understand how we're not the body. We have to understand God's interaction with this material spirit, the souls in this world, how things are manifested, how the universe goes through cycles and creations and destructions. So it's God's interaction with Maya. When you discuss God's interaction with Maya, you transcend Maya. If you discuss God's interactions with matter, then you transcend matter. Does that make sense? Connor G?
You mentioned how there's still like a form of Maya in the spiritual world. Could you elaborate on that point?
Yeah, so that's called Yoga Maya, and that's the form of Maya. So Maya just means illusion. So there's one illusion that facilitates your forgetfulness of God, so you can have the illusion of distance and separateness. And then there's another form of Maya called Yoga Maya that facilitates not your distance but your intimacy. So Mother Yashoda, she's feeding Krishna. She's serving God in the motherly way. And she thinks, he needs my care. And Krishna, at one point, she looks into his mouth, and what does she see?
The entire creation.
Entire universes, planets, solar systems. She sees so much. She sees all the elements. She sees the angels, the demigods. She sees everything inside his mouth. And she even sees herself, a planet, and herself on that planet in his mouth, feeding him. And all of a sudden she starts to become very distant, very reserved, and starts offering prayers. And Krishna doesn't like it, so he just goes, and she just forgets all about it. This happened twice to her. Once when he was a baby, and once Krishna's brother said, "Ma, Krishna's eating dirt." And he's like, "No, I'm not. They're lying. We're playing a game and I lost and they're trying to get back at me." Like, "No, Mom, he's eating dirt. Look at his mouth. He's eating dirt." And then she opened his mouth and she saw the entire universe. And then there was a huge forest fire. This was after Krishna fought the multi-headed snake Kaliya. He was just a young boy and he danced on the hoods of this multi-headed serpent. And after that there was a giant forest fire. And he told all of his friends, "Close your eyes." So they all closed their eyes. And he swallowed the forest fire. And he told them to close their eyes because they already tattled on him when he was eating dirt. and he was afraid. Like, if my mom hears I ate a forest fire, I'm in big trouble now. So I tell them, close your eyes. So, yes, Candra.
I also, forgive me, I don't know how much more time we have, but how does Yoga Maya relate to the idea of free will then? If it's, like, is it something we take upon ourselves to have that relationship? Or is it put on us, that relationship, to have?
So, Jivara Surpa Hoy Krishna, the nature of the soul to serve Krishna is already there. And the soul has its own affinity towards a particular type of relationship. So, Krishna's energy is facilitating our relationship. All right. I think we're ready for some kirtan. Huh? Yeah. So we do standing kirtan this time. So everybody's get up, stretch your legs,